Welcome to Oromia Today Review. Today, we're examining a pretty potent piece of writing,
Yes, we're looking closely at an op-ed from Oromoo Kulsuyu.
and that's pronounced Oromoo Kiltu, just for clarity.
Right, Oromoo Kulsu. The title is Ethiopia's Six Big Lies Fueling Its Impending Collapse.
Our goal here isn't to endorse, but to really unpack the arguments presented, focusing on the educational takeaways about how historical narratives can shape or maybe even destabilize a political entity.
Exactly. And the author's core thesis hits you right away. Any system, political, social, whatever, if it's built on lies, it's inherently unstable.
Because lies they break down trust, don't they? They distort how things actually are.
Precisely. And collapse becomes almost inevitable. The op-ed positions Ethiopia as a textbook case.
Describing it as an empire propped up by specific historical deceptions.
Yes, particularly glorifying emperors like Menelik and Haile Selassie with strong backing from the Orthodox Church and historically limiting widespread access to education.
Now, before we dive into the six lies themselves, it's probably crucial to understand the perspective of Oromia Today, the publication where this appeared.
Absolutely essential context. Their starting point is that the Oromoo people are facing ongoing systematic oppression rooted in that old Abyssinian empire structure.
And they're advocating for a kind of historical reawakening.
You could put it that way. They emphasize the Oromo nation's distinct history, particularly its traditional democratic governance through the Gada system.
Ah, yes, the Gada system. It's quite complex, isn't it?
Very. And this is where the publication, and this op-ed reflect it, makes a bold claim. They argue Gada, with its fixed 8-year terms, clear power transitions, it actually surpasses ancient Greek democracy.
Surpasses it? How so? That's a big statement.
The argument hinges on inclusivity. They point out Greek democracy excluded women, relied heavily on slavery.
Right.
Whereas the Gada system, they argue, was egalitarian. Slavery wasn't part of it, and women held significant roles in governance.
So the Oromo Renaissance they talk about is about reclaiming that suppressed history, that specific form of democracy.
Exactly. And they see self-determination as the only way to fully achieve that restoration, given the historical context.
Okay, that context is vital. Let's get into the op-ed's core structure then. The 6 specific lies the author believes need confronting.
Let's start this review. Number 1.
The 3,000-year history. This one comes up a lot. The author calls it a political myth.
Yes, a constructed narrative. It focuses almost exclusively on the Northern Aksumite Kingdom's long history, but ignores how recently the name Ethiopia itself was formalized.
How recently?
Officially. Only in Haile Selassie's 1931 constitution. Before that, internationally.
It was Abyssinia, wasn't it? Like when joining the League of Nations in 23?
Precisely. Registered as Abyssinia. The op-ed argues that while the North has ancient roots, that kingdom didn't just naturally grow to include the South.
The South was annexed.
Forcibly annexed, yes. During Emperor Menelik's conquests in the late 19th century, the 1880s, 1890s.
So the 3,000 years label kind of erases the separate histories of groups like the Oromo, Sidama, Somali, Wolaita.
That's the core argument. It suppresses those distinct national histories. The author even points to Ole Boren's work on this, calling the continuity myth a political invention.
Which leads directly into number 2. Ethiopia was never colonized. The op-ed calls this one perhaps the most significant lie fueling current problems.
It's a very charged point, but central to the author's argument. They detail how Menelik, during the scramble for Africa, wasn't just resisting Europeans, he was actively getting arms from them.
Okay.
And then using those European weapons and support for his own expansion, his own colonization drive into places like Bia Oromoo, Oromia today, and other southern regions.
So the op-ed draws a direct parallel between Menelik's actions and European colonialism elsewhere in Africa.
Exactly. The argument is the same forces, the same methods created colonies like Kenya or Sudan, and these territories conquered by Menelik.
But with a crucial difference.
The difference, according to the op-ed, is that the European colonies eventually gained independence, while Menelik's conquests are presented as colonies that persist within Ethiopia today.
And the author notes this idea is sometimes echoed, maybe unintentionally, by outsiders.
Yes, regrettably reinforced by statements from various foreign figures and even YouTubers who might overlook this history of internal colonization.
Okay, number 3 logically follows. Ethiopia is just a country like any other.
Right. If the history is partly fabricated and territories were annexed internally, then the op-ed argues it's not a standard nation-state, it's fundamentally an empire.
Composed of many formerly independent groups brought together by force.
Over 80 distinct ethnic groups, yes. Many were independent nations before Menelek's expansion, so applying normal country rules to an annexed empire?
Right.
Well, the author says that's bound to create friction.
Let's move to number 4, the Christian island. What's the argument here?
This one is framed primarily as a foreign policy strategy.
By Menelik and Haile Selassie.
Correct. They propagated this myth, this image of Ethiopia as a unique Christian bastion in Africa, specifically to build alliances and gain support from Western Christian nations.
But the op-ed argues the reality inside the empire was different.
Starkly different. This narrative effectively masked widespread, systematic discrimination against non-Christians.
Muslims, for instance.
Muslims, yes, but also followers of indigenous belief systems like Wakafana. They were marginalized, often treated as primitive, so that island image was useful internationally, but papered over internal religious inequality.
Okay, number 5, the land of heroes and black freedom. This seems to challenge some very foundational national narratives.
It really does. This is where the op-ed directly confronts events like the Ottawa victory over the Italians in 1896.
Which is usually portrayed as a moment of unified anti-colonial triumph.
For some, yes, but the author argues there's no consensus. For many annexed peoples, that victory is remembered with bitterness because it empowered Menelik, gave him the leverage and prestige for his subsequent brutal internal conquests against other black populations.
And the op-ed makes strong claims about slavery and race relations too.
Very strong. It asserts Ethiopia has a history of slave trading, and specifically frames it as blacks subjugated and enslaved other blacks.
Is there evidence cited for this?
Yes. The author points to the historical record of Oromoo people being enslaved and traded during Menelik's time, noting descendants still live in South Africa.
Wow.
They specifically reference Dr. Sandra Robolt Shell's book, Children of Hope, as documenting this Oromoo slave odyssey.
And the op-ed also mentions specific massacres or atrocities.
It does, using names that resonate deeply in Oromoo collective memory to counter the land of black freedom narrative. Names like Kali Kalinkwo, Kali Anali.
Which refers to the horrific act of mutilation, the cutting of hands and breasts.
Yes, also known as Harma Mura Anoli and Kali Tulama. These are cited as evidence of genocide and egregious crimes against black communities within the empire itself.
The author also connects this historical pattern to more recent events.
Yes, drawing a line to things like the 2016 Eritrea massacre and the 2017-2018 Somali-Oromo conflict, which they attribute to incitement by figures like Abdi Ili, leading to terrible violence and mass displacement of Oromos.
Which brings us to the final point, number 6, Ethiopia of common history.
And the author essentially says, based on everything we've just discussed, this claim is patently false.
Because the previous 5 points demonstrate the opposite.
Precisely. The empire isn't monolithic. Each nation, nationality, ethnic group has its own distinct history, its own heritage. Pushing a single common history narrative is presented as an act of denial.
And the op-ed suggests this denial is active, even accelerating.
Yes, the author claims revisionists, maybe buoyed by things like the new Adwa Museum, are actively trying to rewrite history, even changing school curricula to fit this contested narrative, rather than confronting the difficult truths.
So unpacking the analysis section of the op-ed, what's the core problem identified?
It boils down to what the author describes as a toxic mix of hubris and ignorance among the historically dominant elites. A deep-seated denialism.
Which leads them to reject things like genuine ethnic federalism.
Right. They dismiss it, often blaming it for instability, and instead push for maintaining the centralized status quo that's been in place, more or less, for 150 years.
And the op-ed singles out the Oromo political question as particularly urgent.
It does, because of Oromia's size, its economic importance, the sheer number of people involved. The op-ed argues that resolving the long-standing Oromo grievances is critical not just for Ethiopia, but for the stability of the entire Horn of Africa. You can't ignore it.
But the current government, the Prosperity Party, or PP regime, they seem to be saying the opposite. Their spokesperson, Berhanu Jula, claims the Oromo issues are resolved.
Yes, that's the official line reported in the op-ed, that the Oromo questions are settled, and the Oromo Liberation Army fighters are just rogue groups.
The op-ed strongly disagrees with that assessment.
Very strongly. It characterizes the PP regime, especially since 2018, as being perceived by many Oromos as deeply anti-Oromo, focused on suppression rather than addressing root causes.
And the op-ed cites evidence of ongoing issues, even atrocities. This seems like a crucial educational point.
Absolutely. It specifically references the Reuters investigation from February 2024.
What did that report find?
It exposed the activities of the Kuri Naginya, a state security task force. The op-ed uses this report to detail actions like burning Oromo homes, mass arrests, extrajudicial killings, targeting family members of suspected freedom fighters, and perhaps most shockingly, the murder of 14 Karayu Abagadas.
Traditional Oromo leaders.
Exactly, murdered during a sacred traditional ceremony. This act, highlighted in the op-ed, is presented as a direct attack on the very Gada institutions and culture the Oromo Renaissance seeks to restore.
So these recent events, documented by international media, directly contradict the government's claim that the situation is resolved.
That's the stark conclusion drawn in the op-ed. The violence undermines any narrative of resolution.
Which leads to the op-ed's final, quite uncompromising takeaway.
Yes. Oromoo Kulksu concludes that the feeling among the Oromo, especially the youth, is clear. Lasting peace within the Ethiopian empire structure is impossible without genuine recognition of the Oromo people's right to self-determination. The foundation built on those alleged lies just can't hold.
It's certainly a powerful argument laid out in the op-ed, connecting historical narratives directly to present conflict and future possibilities. A challenging Oromia Today review for sure. Thank you for breaking down that complex material.
It's crucial to engage with these perspectives, however difficult they might be. The link between the past and present is undeniable in this context.
Indeed. And to leave you, our listener, with something to think about. The op-ed suggests that only through genuine self-reflection and a commitment to justice, perhaps through something like true federalism, could the country potentially hold together. But here's the question. Considering the current government's reported military actions and its persistent rejection of self-determination demands, as detailed in sources like the op-ed and the Reuters report, what real assurance exists that any superficial solutions won't just lead to continued cycles of turmoil? Something to ponder.